Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another new little mini-series that we're going to be doing here on the channel over the next bunch of weeks that I guess we're titling Overlooked and Underappreciated Live Albums. Overlooked and Underappreciated Live Albums. So we've talked so much here over the years on this channel about the classic live albums. In fact, 2+ years ago, we did a whole classic live album tournament, right? We did this, went for months, where we did polls here with all you guys here on the YouTube channel and on the Facebook page, where we pit all of these great classic live albums up against each other to determine your all-time favorite live album. Of course, Strangers of the Night by UFO won that particular one. But man, we talked about all Made in Japan and Frampton Comes Alive and Humble Pie at the Fillmore, Allman Brothers at the Fillmore, Unleashed in the East, Made in Europe. I mean, so many great live albums, right? Foghat Live, Genesis Live, The Who Live at Leeds, all these classic live albums, right? And we've revisited a lot of those live albums in recent months and whatnot. But how about those live albums that we never talk about? Those really good live albums by classic bands or more, underrated, unknown, obscure bands. There's a lot of really good ones that never get the credit that they deserve, that kind of fall under the radar. That's what this show is going to be all about, this little mini-series. So we're going to kind of do... Originally, I was going to do like 20 or 25. And then I said, well, you know what? My list started getting longer and longer and longer. I said, you know what? Let's just take this as long as it'll go and try and talk about a lot of these live albums that are really, really, really strong, but just don't get the acclaim that all those big legendary live albums do. So I'm going to do like 10 per episode, so each one of these should be about 15-20 minutes long, and we'll try and do these once a week till I exhaust all the ones that I have accumulated on my master list, because there's a ton of them that are just really good, that if you haven't heard these, you should investigate them. And there's some of them are going to be from the 60s, 70s, the 80s, the 90s. More recently, they're going to be kind of from all over the place. They're going to be classic rock, heavy metal, hard rock. You might get some blues stuff. You might get some fusion stuff. You're going to get some prog stuff. It's going to be just like a little bit of everything. So hang in there. Let's adjust my seat, and let's kind of get started here. So the first one was recorded on April 13th, 1971 at Leeds University in the UK, right? So it is the Groundhogs. Great, great power trio. I believe this was originally, at least this version that I have here, was originally released in 1998, but there's lots of different versions of this particular album floating around out there with their varying different covers. But as you can see, this one was clearly mimicking The Who live at Leeds, right? Single disc set. This is Tony McPhee on lead guitars and vocals, killer guitar player. Peter Cruikshank on bass, and Ken Pustelnik on drums. If you never listened to the Groundhogs, they are a prototypical British heavy blues rock power trio, and emphasis on heavy, especially on this album. So you've got Cherry Red is on here, classic Groundhogs track, cranking. You got Garden, Split Part 1, which is kick-ass. His guitar tone, Tony's guitar tone, is completely savage on this album. You got Groundhog Blues and Eccentric Man. So it's not a really long album. It's maybe just over 30 minutes. 30 minutes of intense power trio, heavy blues rock. Great, great guitar work on here. Really, really good. If you haven't heard Live at Leeds by the Groundhogs, you are missing out. And again, the Groundhogs, not really a household name for many. So definitely, if you like kind of like the early 70s heavy blues rock scene from the UK, you really got to check that out. All right, next up, we've got this one, which was released in 2010, but recorded October 3rd, 1970 at the Fillmore East in New York City. Johnny Winter and live at the Fillmore East, October 10/3, 1970. Okay, so this actually predates the Johnny Winter and live album, which was also recorded at the Fillmore, but that was recorded in the fall of 1970. And this, I'm getting my dates correct. No, early 1971, sorry. Or later in the year. Now I'm totally getting confused. All these crazy dates. Anyway, they're not from the same dates. I think, actually, the Johnny Winter and was recorded earlier in the year, like March, if I'm not mistaken. That live album was recorded earlier in the year. This one's recorded later in the year, so again, October 1970. And you kind of can hear the band really, really gel. I mean, that's a great live album, killer live album. But here they sound absolutely amazing as well. And it's just killer. And like I said, this came out in 2010. And here, just let me see if there's any. I mean, as far as like the release goes, there's not a ton of stuff on here. But of course, this is Johnny Winter and Rick Derringer and company. It's just absolutely smoking. Great twin guitars. One of the great twin guitar bands of all time. So if you love the early 70s Johnny Winter when he's doing like a little bit more of the rock stuff, the bluesy rock stuff, you absolutely have to hear this. This is quite good. All right. So this is one of the ones I think on my list here today that probably among serious fans, this is absolutely a legendary live album, and it most certainly is. It's got a weird release history because it originally was released in 1974 only in Japan, and then about a year later it came out in Europe, and we didn't see a regular release here in the States till 1991. It was recorded in Osaka, Japan in 1993. That is Lotus from Santana. This is the original 2 CD set. I actually have the 3 CD Ultimate or Complete Edition on order, so I should have that because I just been listening to all this Latin rock stuff of late for an upcoming episode of In the Prog Seat, and I'm thinking like, man, I need to get that damn Lotus complete set because, man, this is an incredible performance recorded in Osaka. And again, this is the band right after Greg Raleigh and Neil Schon left the band, so of course Carlos is becoming even more and more spiritual, and they're doing lots of jazz and fusion and all sorts of really otherworldly type of music. And man, you get great versions of some classics on here. You know, Incident at Neshabur is like 16 minutes long. You got an amazing Toussaintly overture on here. Black Magic Woman is on here. Gypsy Queen Oyo Como Va, you know, Stoneflower. Samba de Sausalito is great on here. Really good stuff. Lots of really cool synthesizer stuff and searing guitar from Carlos. This is amazing. This is probably one of Santana's most kind of like spacey, spiritual releases I've ever heard. It's one of the great live albums from Santana. But again, I think because of its release history, some people tend to talk about Moonflower a little bit more, which was live with some studio stuff, but I think this is the ultimate Santana live album. Really good, but again, it doesn't seem to get a lot of credit for being as great as it is, so that's another one. Definitely should have on your radar. So this particular band has lots of live albums. Lots of them, and I have so many of them. But I think this is the one that gives Live at Leeds a run for its money, and I'm talking about The Who live at the Isle of Wight Festival 1970. So Live at Leeds is like the big brother. Everybody, when you talk about a live Who album, it's like, oh, Leeds. That's absolutely killer. And it is. It's number one for a reason. But this, which was first released in 1996, crazy that they held on to this for so many years. 2-disc set, which includes the entire Leeds performance. I mean, not Leeds, Isle of Wight performance. Again, in front of like, what, 750,000 people, right, out there on the Isle of Wight, which was a great festival. Lots of great performances from that weekend. However, this is completely magical. Not only do you get like all these really great Who tracks from the early part of their career, you get like pretty much just about a complete performance of Tommy on disc 2, which is just absolutely amazing. I mean, this is, and I love, of course, they have the video for this as well, the DVD. A spectacular performance by The Who. You know, maybe lacks a little bit of the ferocity of the Leeds performance, but next to that, and maybe like Woodstock, I mean, this is, to me, is like one of the great Who performances of all time. It's so good, and this live album sounds really good. You know, you got Entwistle there, of course, in his little skeleton outfit, and man, they're just amazing stuff. I wish more people would talk about Isle of Wight for The Who. Again, Leeds gets all the attention. That's great. All right, now for something a little more recent. So this is Whitesnake Live in the Shadow of the Blues. Released in 2006, recorded from various venues all around the world. This was, of course, the version of Whitesnake back in force, Doug Aldrich and Red Beach on co-lead guitars and lots of really great tracks on here. Older and new. So what I really like about this, so it's David Coverdale, Doug Aldrich, Reb Beach, Timothy Drury on keyboards and vocals, Uriah Duffy on bass, and of course Tommy Aldridge on guitar. Tommy Aldridge on drums, Doug Aldrich on guitar. What I really like about this is you get lots of older Whitesnake stuff mixed with the 80s stuff. And plus you get 4 new tracks on here as well. So there's stuff on here like Take Me With You's on here, Don't Break My Heart Again, Ready and Willing. Great old stuff, but then you're mixing it in with Bad Boys, Slide It In. You get Burn and Stormbringer on here from Deep Purple. You get things like Give Me All Your Love Tonight, Walking in the Shadow of the Blues, Deeper the Love, Still the Night, Here I Go Again, Fool for Your Lovin', Crying in the Rain, Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City, Is This Love, Judgment Day, Love Ain't No Stranger. A lot of really good stuff on here. You get the wicked guitar solo from the 2 guitar slingers there. This is a great live album and a great sounding live album, which gives, obviously there's the older live album from Whitesnake, Live in the Heart of the City, which is great from that version of the band. But as far as like a more recent Whitesnake album over the last 20, 30 years, live album, this is killer. Really good. And again, I had to buy this as an import when it first came out because, to my knowledge, this was not available domestically here. So it's like SPV Records, I believe, yeah. So there's that. Now, let's move on to a 1974 release from a great American band called Mountain Twin Peaks. And that is the album. This is a 2-on-1 set. That's it up there. This is Twin Peaks and Avalanche studio album all together here. I remember buying this. I had this on vinyl back in the day. Killer live album from Mountain that contained pretty much all of their kind of signature tracks all in one live set. You get Never in My Life. You get Theme for an Imaginary Western. Of course, you get Blood of the Sun. You get Nantucket Sleigh Ride, which is monstrous, and it actually goes across 2 sides of vinyl, so it kind of fades out at the end of, I think it was side 2, and then picks up again. Just very bizarre. Lots of jamming on. Crossroaders on here, Mississippi Queen, Silver Paper. You got a weird cover of Roll Over Beethoven, which is kind of cool, but I would have liked another Mountain song. And then a nice lengthy guitar solo from Leslie West. So, yeah, really good. Really solid. It's a great sounding live album. Leslie sounds, his guitar tone heavy as hell. Felix is great on here. Corky Lang. Good stuff. There's also a second guitar player on here as well. God, I forget his name off the top of my head. So it's kind of interesting, especially on Nantucket Sleigh Ride, to hear trading guitar solos. That was Bob Mann. So Bob Mann on guitar and keyboards. Actually, I'm sorry, no Corky Lang on this album. This was Alan Schwartzberg. So Corky Lang was back in the band for the Avalanche album, but it was Leslie West, Felix Pappalardi, Bob Mann on guitar and keys, and Alan Schwartzberg on drums. So again, and this remaster was from 2011. But yeah, really good stuff there. Love Mountain. All right, this one released in 1981, recorded live in Vancouver, Canada. Hey, Vancouver! Now I know what it feels like to play here. You guys are all right. Of course, I'm talking about Snaz by Nazareth. That's right, the house is full. Sold out. Now, I remember when this first came out, I was into the heavy 70s Nazareth stuff. And by here, they were already starting to kind of, their music was getting a little mellower, more commercial, less big and guitar heavy. Still really good music. So this live set is a mix of some of those earlier classics with some of the more contemporary stuff they were doing at the turn of the 80s. And I remember thinking at the time, there's a little too much piano, and it's not quite the big thunderous Nazareth I really like. But over the years, I've really grown to love this album, and there's lots of great stuff on here. It kicks off with the multi-part Telegram track from Close Enough for Rock and Roll, which is just a terrific, and this is a terrific version on here, by the way. Really good stuff. You get Razzmanazz is on here, This Flight Tonight, Beggar's Day. You get Holiday and Dress to Kill, Hair of the Dog, Expect No Mercy, Shapes of Things, Love Hurts is on here, I Want to Do Everything for You. Tush is on here. They get some cover songs on here. Cocaine, they do a cover of Cocaine, cover of Tush. So, it's probably a couple Nazareth did a lot of covers, but I would have liked to have heard more of their signature tunes on here. Just a couple more, but this is still really good, and I think it's held up quite well over the years. And, if we weren't going to get a Nazareth live album in the 70s, I would have liked if we did. We didn't. This is as close as you're going to get, so from the early 80s. So again, Nazareth kind of in transition to lighter fare, but still retaining a lot of their power and playing some of their signature tunes. Good live album. Very, very cool stuff. All right. So this particular blues guitar player, blues rock guitar player, psychedelic guitar player, whatever you want to call him, he had a signature live album in the mid-70s just called Live. It's one of my favorite live albums of all time. It's the album that got me into this guy. But then years later came another live album, and that original live album I was talking about should have been a double album. Well, we kind of got everything we were looking for on Robin Trower in concert with the King Biscuit Flower Hour. This was released in 1996, taken from recording from 1977. Again, this is the classic band. This is Robin, along with Jimmy Dewar and Bill Lorden. This was recorded in New Haven, Connecticut. And here you get stuff that probably we would have liked to have heard on the original live album. So you got Lady Love, Somebody Calling. It's a nice addition to here. Falling Star, right? You get Two Rolling Stone, Smile, Daydream, Foolin' Me, killer song. Bridge of Sighs is on here. Day of the Eagles on here. A little bit of Sympathy, Messin' the Blues, and Further On Up the Road. So to me, like, even though I still hold that original live album in, ridiculous lofty heights, I will always. That was like, to me, Robin Trower was my first guitar hero, and when I first heard that album, it just blew my mind. But I was always like, God, I wish it was longer. This maybe maybe the overall performances are not quite as iconic to me as that album, but this is more of a fully realized live album, I think, because that album is a little on the short side. This, you have all the songs. I mean, you get basically everything, or almost everything, from that original live album, plus you get stuff like Messin' the Blues and Day of the Eagle and Bridge of Sighs and Foolin' Me. I mean, Somebody Calling. So you get some additional tracks on here, which I think are really cool, as well as, things like Lady Love, Two Rolling Stones, Daydream, and a little bit of Sympathy, which were all on the original live album. So, and this is killer, and it sounds really good. And Robin's playing is absolutely great. Jimmy's singing great. So this is absolutely essential if you're a Robin Trower fan, if you don't already have that. All right, next up, of course, Live and Dangerous, right? That's the iconic Thin Lizzy live album. Well, UK Tour 75, pretty damn good too. Came out in 2008. It was recorded in Derby, England, in 1975. Any live albums, live recordings from this era of Thin Lizzy is reason to celebrate. And I remember when this finally hit the stores, all of us Lizzy fans were celebrating because, of course, this is the iconic lineup of Scott Gorham, Brian Robertson, Phil Lynott, and Brian Downey. And here you got, Fighting My Way Back, It's Only Money, Wild One, For Those Who Love to Live, Still in Love with You, Showdown, Suicide, Rosalie, The Rocker, Sha-La-La-La-La-La-La, Baby Drives Me Crazy, Me and the Boys, Cowboy Song, Little Darling, and then a little jam at the end, like a sound check jam they call it. Sounds really good. Is it quite the iconic that Live and Dangerous is? Not quite. But if you can't get enough of Live and Dangerous and want more from right around this time period, you have to have this. Absolutely have to have this, right? From a little bit earlier. It's definitely really, really cool stuff. And last but not least for today, we're going to go, now this band has had a signature live album in the early 70s, but many, many years later, in 2006 as a matter of fact, they released what I think is an even better live album than that iconic in-concert live album from 10 years after. This is Live at the Fillmore East, recorded in 1970. Killer stuff. All right, of course, the original lineup of 10 years after, Alvin Lee and folks. Love Like a Man, Good Morning Little Schoolgirl, long versions of those two, right? So there's a good amount of jamming on here. Working on the Road, The Hobbit, of course, which, of course, a drum solo in it, that's like 10 minutes and change. 50,000 Miles Beneath My Brain, about 10 minutes long. Great soloing from Alvin Lee on that. You got Scoobly Oobly Doobly, I Can't Keep From Crying, sometimes an extension on one chord, all like a medley, lots of jamming on that. That's like 20 minutes long. Disc 2, you got Help Me, 16 minutes long. I'm Going Home by Helicopter. Yeah. From the Woodstock, but this recording, the Woodstock version is better than this, I think, because the Woodstock version of I'm Going Home is just totally sick. This is really good on here too. It's 12 minutes long. Sweet Little 16, Roll Over Beethoven, I Woke Up This Morning, which is killer on here. 8-minute long heavy version of I Woke Up This Morning. And then to finish it all off, a 8-minute version of Spoonful. Yeah, to me, this is the ultimate 10 years after live album, which doesn't get the credit for it because, you know, it came out so much later. If they would have released this back in the 70s, we'd be talking about this as one of the great live albums of the 70s. Really, really great stuff. So there you have it, everybody. So that's my first 10 in this series. Coming up, the next 10, well, a lot of good stuff. I'm not going to give them all away, but you got some classic rock stuff. You got some hard rock, some jazz fusion, some kind of proggy hard rock. Yeah, all sorts of cool stuff coming up. Like I said, I'm going to be jumping all over the place as far as like decades of release and all that. I'm just going through my collection and finding all those really great live albums that nobody ever talks about. So that's kind of what this is all about. Yeah, overlooked and underappreciated live albums. Hopefully with this series, they will get appreciated by all you folks who will be watching. So I think the moral of the story is go out and see if you can listen to these somewhere. If you want to try and track them down and buy them, go right ahead. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these. And if you are very familiar with any of these live albums, tell us a little bit about your history with these live albums and how much you dig them, or not, down in the comments below. And visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave as well. So thanks for watching, everybody. We also got the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, as well as our merch page down in the video description below. And we'll see you in about a week or so with another episode of this. Stay tuned for more content here on the channel, including What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility Day coming up tomorrow, new release day. So we got a couple of things for you. So check that out, and we'll see you Thursday night on the Monsters Den. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.